Hi, everybody. You might be approaching the end of your financial year, and it's the perfect time to get your Sage 50 accounts in order. The year end process itself is simple. It doesn't matter if you're a seasoned pro or if it's your first time, it's just a few steps in the wizard. But before you dive in, there are some important checks and housekeeping tasks that will just make everything run smoothly. Things like archiving your company data just keeps it organized and improves performance. We'll show you how to create an archive and why it's a good habit. Then there's backing up your data, which is essential before making any changes, and we'll share best practice just to ensure your backups are reliable. And avoid accidental postings into a closed period by setting a lock date. It's quick to do and it saves headaches later. We'll also guide you through the year end wizard as well, step by step, so you can complete the process with confidence. If you need to tidy up old or unused records, we'll show you how to do that as well in our Delete Your Records webinar. And then we'll also cover how to clear the audit trail. It can help speed things up, and we'll explain when it's appropriate and how to do that safely. So to help you to prepare, we're hosting a series of live webinars throughout January and February. These sessions will give you practical tips and demonstrations so you feel confident about your year end and keep your accounts in great shape. Don't miss this opportunity to start the new year with clean, organised data and peace of mind. Make sure you reserve your spot today at sage.co.uk/webinars, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Hi everyone, it's that time again when you might be starting to think about your year end. The year end process itself is straightforward. It's a simple wizard that includes a few options. However, before this, there's the preparation stage, ensuring you've posted everything, and of course, it involves running reports. But do you understand your reports and also the opportunities that you have to develop them? Ensuring they're accurate, but also that they provide you with a correct level of detail. Throughout January and February, we're running a series of live webinars to help develop your knowledge and understanding of the management reports available in Sage 50 accounts. We'll be starting with the basics, understanding nominal records and the structure of the nominal ledger. This is also ideal if you need to create new nominal codes. Following on from this, we'll examine the chart of accounts, looking at all aspects, including adding new layouts and editing existing ones. Our attention then turns to the management reports themselves, the trial balance, the profit and loss, and of course the balance sheet. We'll explain how to run them, what they show, and most importantly, how the figures calculate. We want you to be confident. On the management report session, one of the most common scenarios we're asked about is where you haven't yet run your year end, but need to generate a profit and loss report for your next financial year. We've got your back with this and have a specific webinar that explores the options you have available, whether it's running reports for your new financial year or even a previous one. The last webinar in the series looks at reconciling your age debtors and age creditor reports at year end, ensuring that the balances agree with the figures on your trial balance and the balance sheet. Of course, this could be done at any time, such as part of your month-end process. So come along and we'll demonstrate what to check and how to run them to ensure everything agrees. If you'd like to attend any or all of these sessions to help develop your knowledge and boost your confidence, then simply head along to sage.co.uk/webinars and register for your free place. These, along with loads of other topics, including how to run your year end, are available. See you soon.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for this morning's session. Today, we're looking at Sage 50 accounts, and specifically, we're looking at part of our management report series of webinars that we're currently running at the moment. So the ones that we covered in that little video just at the beginning there. So we're looking specifically at the chart of accounts. So we'll be running through all aspects of the chart of accounts today. Hopefully you did get a chance to attend the nominal records session. If you haven't, we are running that one again this week. So do get signed up for that one. They work very closely, as does our next session, which looks at the management reports themselves. So this morning, should spend about 45 minutes running through that. Now, we'll quickly run you through a little bit of housekeeping just before we do get started with the session today. So you don't need a microphone for the session. If you've got one, you will find it's muted automatically. There is an opportunity to download a copy of today's slides, so you can use the handout option. You may see a little bit of a difference in the interface today, so you may have a toolbar down the right, or if you join via your web browser, you may have options along the top of that window. But you'll be able to, there should be two copies of that handout available. One is the full color version, the other is what we term the print-friendly version. It's got all the colors stripped out. So do take that opportunity if you do want them. Not a lot to the slides today. It will nearly all be demonstration. Now, because your microphone's muted, if you have one, if you've got any questions for us, do get them sent across. Comments or questions can be submitted throughout. Remember to, once you start typing those, click send, and we'll try and I'll just either read it out or you make it a typed answer. So we got Laura and Abby on hand in the background today to support you with those. Now, as usual, you will get a follow-up email round about an hour after we finish. That will include a link to today's recording. So if you need a bit of a recap, work through it in your software at your own pace. Just watch out for that one. The email will also include links so you can register for our upcoming webinars and also so you can access our recordings. So if you haven't yet signed up for maybe you haven't attended the nominal records session, or maybe you now want to develop your knowledge that bit further, get yourself signed up for the management report sessions that we've got booked in as well. So I think we'll be running management reports we run next week, and we'll repeat it the week after. So loads of opportunities to get yourself signed up if you haven't already. Right, let's get stuck in with today's webinar though. So this is what we're going to be covering. So quite a short agenda. As I say, it's nearly all demonstration today. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background to what the chart of accounts actually is. We're then going to run through a series of demonstrations. So how do you go about adding, editing, deleting a chart of accounts? We'll look at categories. Floating categories, floating categories, if you've not touched the chart of accounts before, maybe you have, but floating categories is by far the most complicated part of the chart of accounts. So if you can get your head around that a bit, how it works, we're going to try and give you nice simple terms when we get onto that area. Then if you can get your head around that, the rest is pretty straightforward. Also going to pick up on checking for errors, and this is something that you can do straight away. You can get into your chart of accounts, edit it, click check, to see if there's any errors in your chart of accounts. Picking up on common questions along the way as well. Some of you will never have touched a chart of accounts, never have heard of it. Others, you'd be probably quite experienced in that area as well, and maybe you've developed your own charts of accounts, etc. So hopefully you'll go away, whatever level or whatever position you're in, you'll go away feeling a lot more confident today, even if it's just to consolidate your knowledge a little bit. But for others, it might be a bit of an eye-opener as to what you can actually do. Right, so let's start with a little bit of background. So what actually is the chart of accounts? So the chart of accounts is basically a structure. It provides that structure for your management reports. Now, not all management reports, trial balance doesn't use it, but the profit and loss and your balance sheet and a number of other areas in the software will actually use your chart of accounts. It helps the software to determine whether a nominal code is a profit and loss or a balance sheet account, whether it needs grouped on certain reports, that type of thing. Obviously, we'll be running through that in today's session. Now, you can have multiple layouts. Now, all helps and or help file, I should say, many years ago, in your version 2 here, you should see you can have up to 64,000 different layouts of accounts. Now, I don't think anyone's ever going to get anywhere near that. I'm not talking nominal records. I'm on about structures for your management reports. If anyone gets there, let me know if that is actually the limit, because that's what it used to say. But I don't think you're going to get anywhere near that. It's common to, obviously, you've got to have one. I'll explain why when we get into it. But it's common to have more than that. You might have different charts of accounts depending on what level of detail you want to show in your reports. They'll have different ranges. You might have ranges, you might have single nominal codes in a range. It just depends what you want to show, what you want to include, and the level of detail. So it's quite common to have them for maybe different departments, just different variants of your profit and loss. So internally, a profit and loss, you'll probably want a lot of detail on there. But if you're generating reports maybe to show your bank manager, for instance, it might be a bit different. You don't need as much detail in there. So you might add certain figures together. But it means you can have a go of this as well. We're going to show you how as we run through this session. So we're going to get stuck straight into some demonstrations. I'll share my screen and we'll get started. See if I can find the right option for sharing today. There we go. So you should see my desktop at that point. Right, now to access the chart of accounts, we're going to go into nominal codes. And on your toolbar at the top, you've got the chart of accounts icon. Now, if you can't see that, it's going to be for one of two reasons. One is just your access levels. Your username doesn't have, not being granted access to that one. The other one is that potentially you've hidden it at some point. So you've maybe right-clicked on your toolbar at the top. So it doesn't matter where you right-click on that toolbar. It will give you a list of the options for yourself that can be shown or hidden. So a chart of accounts is one of those options. And if I take the tick out of that one, you'll see it just disappears from the top. That's a good way of sort of decluttering your toolbar. So if there's any options you don't use, then you can hide them. But if I just switch that back on, so again, right click at the top, switch it back on, and I've now got access to it. So again, you'll only have that option if your username has access to the chart of accounts. So we're going to go into it, and you'll see in mine, I've got two listed. I've got a default layout of accounts, and I've got one which is called Accounts Detailed Sales. Now, as we mentioned, these layouts, it provides the structure for some of your management reports. It's used in some other areas as well. So for instance, if I just close out of that for a moment and we run just click on the profit and loss icon at the top. When we run that report, and the criteria window appears, as well as what date range we want to run the report for, it's asking which chart of accounts do we want to use. So click on the drop down, and again, it will list the two that I've got set up. We'll do that for the likes of your balance sheet, comparative P&L, your prior year reports. It will also use it if you're in, so we talked a little bit about this in the nominal code session. By default, you will be set up for the analyzer view. I think more commonly, people have all the nominal codes in list view, but if you're in analyzer view, you will get the choice of which chart of accounts you want to use. So again, it's all to do with the grouping, the way that information is displayed. Similarly, if you use one of the advanced budgeting options, you will also, when you get into the budgets area, it will ask you which chart of accounts you want to use. For now, we'll just leave that in list view and we'll go back to the chart of accounts option itself. Right, so let's just quickly work through the options along the top of this window, then these options, these icons. So we've got an option to add. So as I mentioned, you can virtually have as many charts of accounts layouts as you want. So if you click add, it's just going to ask you to give it a name. I'll just put my initials in. And it will create that, and it gives me a blank chart of accounts. So it means I can then set one up myself. Again, it means you can have a little bit of a play around in this area as well. Now, if I just save that, I will get a message. We're going to come back to things like this a little bit later on when we look in a bit more detail. But for now, I'll just click OK. That puts it on the list. And again, the fact that it says partial, we're going to come back to that a little bit later as well. Explain what it means and, if needed, how you can get rid of the word partial being on the end of your description. Now, if we highlight the chart of accounts and click Edit, it will take us into that edit window, as you'd expect. And again, this is where what we're going to concentrate on in just a minute. I'll close out of that for the time being. But that's where you can start to make your changes and see what's listed and what's grouped with what. You've got an option to copy. Now, the copy option isn't available in the essentials level of the software. So if you do need to copy a chart of accounts, there is information available in our help center on how to do that. But standard or professional, you'll have the copy option available. Now, the copy option, what that will do is it will take a copy of whichever one you've got selected, whichever one's highlighted, and it will create a copy for you. A little bit easier than adding one and starting from scratch. So I'll just highlight the one at the top there. I'll click copy, and it just pops it onto the end for you. It means I can have a play around with that one, editing ranges and seeing what it does and doesn't do without impacting on the one that's there. Again, I could highlight that one. I could go to edit and I could start making whatever changes I want. Now, as you create these as well, and I'll just close out of that for a moment. If we go back to the profit and loss report, just as an example, we'll preview that. And you'll see on the chart of accounts, on the drop down, it pulls them through automatically. So you don't need to do anything. You just add them to the main chart of accounts list. It just reads that list when you come to run the report. Right, back to the chart of accounts. Now, this make default option. What this does is it flags it as current. Whatever one you got highlighted, it'll flag it as the current. So if I highlight this one that says MC partial, and I click make default, you'll see it updates the description in this box at the bottom. It tells me it's been updated successfully as well. But it updates this where it says current at the bottom. Now, what that means is if I now go into the likes of the profit and loss reports, displays the criteria and the chart of accounts, it automatically selects whichever one I've got flagged as being the current one. I can still switch to the other ones, but it just means when I go in to run that report, when it prompts me to select the chart of accounts from that drop down, it'll already have selected the one that's flagged as the one that's essentially the default. So that's the first use of flagging one of your chart of accounts as current. The next is that it does not let you delete the one that is flagged as current. So it almost like protects it. Because you've got to have one flagged as the default, as current at the bottom here, it means that there's always going to be at least one chart of accounts. Now, with this one highlighted, if I try to delete it, to see, are you sure you wish to delete whatever your description is? So if I click yes to that, it'll say you cannot delete the default chart of accounts. So it protects it. Just okay that. Now this one at the top, if I make that one, set it back to being the default, this one at the top. So it updates it at the bottom here. I go back to this one and I click delete now because it's no longer flagged as the current. So are you sure? Yes. And it's gone. So easy to get rid of them if needed. As long as they're not flagged as current, you can get rid of them. So it means you could always create one, have a bit play around with it, and when you're finished, just delete it afterwards. Your print list sent to Excel, unlikely you're going to use these unless maybe, of course, let's say you do have 64,000 different layouts. You might print the list and go around and say, right, who uses what? and then get rid of everything else. So print list will just print that list for you, whatever the descriptions are. Send to Excel. I'll quickly run that one so you can see it. Again, it'll do a similar sort of thing. It's taking a while for my Excel to open. Just copies the descriptions and lists the descriptions that you've got on that list. Doesn't do anything more than that. But just for consistency with the rest of the software, it is there. So you tend to find print list and send to Excel. It's available just about throughout the software. So those are the options at the top. What we want to do is concentrate, obviously, on the edit option. So I'm just going to edit this one, this default layout of accounts. I'm going to make some changes to this one. So we're going to click edit. Excuse me. Just to quickly run you through the screen, first of all, what we've got here. So we've got the title. So if you do need to change the title of your chart of accounts layout, you can come in and you can do that. You've got two tabs here, profit and loss and balance sheet. Now, if we toggle between the two, you'll see pretty much the screen layout is pretty much the same. So for profit and loss, I'm going to concentrate on that to begin with. You've got your sections of what you'd expect to see on a profit and loss report. So sales, purchases, direct expenses, overheads, taxation. If you need to rename those for whatever reason, you might go for sort of, I suppose, income rather than sales. You can do that. Now it does look like you can add a sixth one, but you can click there, but nothing happens. So you've got your descriptions. Now, as you toggle through them, so as I click purchases as an example, you'll see that these ranges underneath change. That's where we're going to concentrate on just a moment. We can whiz through them just so you can have a quick look. Balance sheet, pretty much the same. You've got your descriptions of the various sections that you would expect to have on a balance sheet report. And again, you've got the relevant range based on whichever one you've got selected. On the right here, you've got your preview option. Just gives you an idea, right, in sales, right, these are the descriptions that you've got. Now, if I just change that very quickly. On product sales, I just put my initials in, make it a little bit quicker, make it very obvious there. You'll see it changes on the preview side. So if you're looking at your profit and loss, you think, oh, there's a typo on there, or you want to call something else, you can do that. It doesn't change any of the nominal codes themselves. It's just the description that would appear on the profit and loss report itself. Put that back in. Right, now what we have in this section, these are what we term our nominal ranges, or our nominal categories maybe. There's a few different descriptions for them. And what we've got within the sales section, so remember, as we toggle through them, it'll show you, so if we click on the purchases, it'll show us the descriptions and the ranges for purchases, direct expenses, overheads, etc. So in sales, what we've got is we've got a description, and then we've got a low and a high value. So low and high being based around your nominal code list. So again, going back to when we looked at nominal records, we mentioned your sales nominal codes. By default, they're in the 4,000 range. Purchases, they're in the 5,000 range. Your direct expenses, see, it's picking up nominal codes from the 6,000 range. Overheads, it's generally from 7,000 to 9,999. And then taxation, it's tucked in the middle of your overheads. So you've got just 9,001 to 9,001 by default. Go back to sales though. So what we've got is we've got some descriptions. Product sales, a low value of 4,000 and a high value of 4,099. So when we run our profit and loss report, it's going to look at your chart of accounts based on whichever one you've selected, and it'll say, right. So in sales, product sales is the first description. And we've got a low value and a high value. And what it will do is it will add up the values for the nominal codes that exist in that range for whatever date range it's specified. So it'll add up the nominal codes that exist within that range, add the figures together, and if there is an overall value, it'll include it on the P&L report. Similar for export sales. We've got a description. We've got a low 4,100 to 4,199. So again, when we run our P&L, it'll look at the nominal codes that exist within that range based on a low and a high value. It's always based on a low and a high value. So again, very important when you're setting up new nominal codes that your nominal codes sit within the right range. So if I set up a new product sales nominal code, for instance, and I made it number, let's say 4150, it would mean it would sit within this range here. What I couldn't then do is say, right, I want to include it in this range. Because it's based on a low and a high value. So very important when you're creating new nominal codes that you use the right number so it sits in the right place. Now, this is quite a broad range, that one, 4,000 to 4,099, even just based on 4-digit nominal codes. You potentially got up to 100 nominal codes included in that range. Now, it might be that you want a lot more detail when you produce your P&L report. So if you're using that internally, rather than just see product sales and see loads of nominal codes added together, what you might want to do is narrow that down a bit for a bit more detail. Now, you can have a range, a bit like we've got, or you can have a single, all the way down to a single nominal code. So I could do low 4,000 to high 4,000. And it would mean that when I produce that P&L, it's then only looking at that one nominal code. So it would show that as an individual balance when we go to generate that report. Naomi, you mentioned there, is there a way to check that you haven't accidentally left out any active nominal codes from your chart of accounts? Yes, we're going to be picking on the check option in just a few minutes. So we'll come back. You got the check option at the top. It would identify that for you. Right. So anyway, coming back to the ranges, let's say we do want to narrow it down. And I'll quickly show you my other chart of accounts first of all. So I'm just going to close out of that. I don't need to save any changes. So I've got this one here, which is basically, I've copied the top one, but then in the sales section, I've made it a lot more detailed. So if I just edit this one, and you'll see what we've now got is, rather than say 4,000 to 4,099, I've got 4,000 to 4,000, 4,001 to 4,001, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, 4 to 4. And then what was the rest of the range, I've just summarized as sales miscellaneous. So I've done 4,005 to 4,099. So it's still picking up all the same nominal codes. It's just when I do a P&L, it's then going to show nominal code 4,000. It's going to show that as an individual balance. Saves me drilling into it or having to run other reports to get at that information. So this is when you can start developing your P&L or your balance sheet for that matter, so you can get the right level of detail that you're after. Now I'm going to show you how you do that, but I'm going to go back to the other chart of accounts where we've got the range there. So we got the range 4,000 to 4,099. Now there's two useful function keys when you're working in your chart of accounts, F7 and F8. F7 inserts a blank line. F8 is used to discard a line, so we'll remove it. Now if I click onto export sales and I just press F7 to insert a blank line, I get this message pop up. It says inserting a line will move all categories down by one, and you will lose any information on the last line of the section. Are you sure you want to continue? So I click yes to that. I'll explain what that means in just a second. I'm going to do that a few times. So just F7, yes to that prompt again, F7, yes to the prompt. And if I just scroll up, you can see we've got some blank lines there. Now, there's no problem having blank lines if you want to structure it that way, make it a little bit easier for you to read. It'll not show those blank lines when it comes to generating your report. Now, when we inserted that blank line, and I pressed F7 to do that, I got this message. Inserting a line will move all categories down by one. So you can see it's to insert that blank line, it's moved everything down from the line I had highlighted. But it says you will lose any information on the last line of this section. You can have up to 80 ranges in each section. Now 80 is the max. That's the restriction. So you can have 80 nominal ranges within your sales section, 80 within purchases, direct expenses, overheads, and even taxation. So the only time now and again you come across it where people might have more than 80 ranges that they want to show in the overheads range, but 80 is that's the max you can have. Now what this message means is that by pushing everything down by one, if you've got anything at the very, very bottom on the 80th line, to insert that blank line, essentially that very last one is going to be pushed off the end. By doing that, it means that that range disappears from your chart of accounts. It doesn't affect your nominal codes in any way. It just means that the range that was there, it's pushed off the end of your list, and therefore it no longer exists within your chart of accounts. So as long as you haven't got anything on the very last line, I wouldn't worry about that one. Now, what I'm going to do for this one, I'm going to change the description. So I'm just going to call it Sales North. And I'm going to change the range. So at the minute, it's 4,000 to 4,099. We're going to do 4,000 to 4,000. And then we'll do Sales South. And we'll do that 4,001 to 4,001. I'll do Sales Scotland. So essentially, I'm bringing it in line with what my other one was before. Do 4,002. 4,002. We'll do Sales Wales. And then the last one, I'm just going to call it Sales. I'll just call it MISC. And we'll do, just to maintain the range that was there, I'm going to do 4,004 to 4,099. So we're still essentially picking up the same nominal codes when we run the reports. It's just now it's going to show the balance for nominal 4,000 individually. Similar for 4,001, 4,002, 4,003. Beyond that, we're back to grouping certain balances together. Now, if you can, what I do normally recommend is that you leave your ranges in numerical order. It's not essential, that one. You know, I could pop one on the end and I could say, you know, if I broke that down, I could put 4,004 to 4,099. I could pop that on the end. But having them in numerical order just makes it that little bit easier when you're looking for making sure everything's included, etc. But again, you do have the check option, which we're going to come back to. So anyway, F7 was used to insert a blank line. If you've got a line that you want to get rid of, so this blank one, I can just click on that, and then I can press F8 on the keyboard. It'll move it and move everything back up. Now, just before anyone asks, if anything had been nudged off the end of the list previously, and you then delete a line, it doesn't just bring it back in. It moves everything up, but it doesn't bring that range that was nudged off the end. It doesn't bring that back onto that last line. That would need to be keyed in again if needed. So that's how easy it is to amend the range. So F7 inserts a blank line, F8 removes a line, discards it. So remember, it's up to 80 ranges you can have. So there's plenty of scope to make it quite detailed if you want it. And again, when you're done, you're quite happy with that, you would just click Save. Tells me it's updated successfully. You might get a different message at that point, but we're going to come back to that one in a moment. So these two are pretty much the same at this point. Just going to go back to Edit. And actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to go back into the main nominal codes list, and I'm just going to quickly run a profit and loss report. Now, if I just quickly preview that, and we use that chart of accounts that we've just essentially gone down to nominal code level with, we just OK that. You can see what we've got here is we've got those descriptions pulling through. So it's got Sales North, Sales South, Sales Scotland. Now it doesn't say Sales Wales, there must be no balance for that for the period that we've run it for, so it doesn't include it. But essentially we can now see this is Sales North. It's just picking up nominal code 4,000. You might even include that in your description. Now, if you go back to the chart of accounts, and I'm just going to edit that chart of accounts, and I'm going to change this one back to product sales. Let's see if I can type today. We'll do 4,000 to 4,099. Right, I'm going to quickly remove those additional lines that I put in there. So we're back to where we were at the very beginning. So just it says product sales, and then we've got that range. I'll save the changes again. I'll quickly run the profit and loss report again. Let's preview that. Just accept all those defaults. And this time when we generate the report, rather than it showing us the various descriptions for North, South, Scotland, Wales, etc., we're now just back to product sales. Now, when you do preview your likes of your P&L report, you'll notice that your figures and your descriptions will be in blue, meaning that they are drillable. So if we click onto a value, see the values themselves and how they calculate, we're going into that in a lot more detail in the next session. We'll look at the management reports themselves. But we can see from here, when we've drilled into it, it's saying, right, product sales, these are the nominal codes that are contributing to that £192,500. So we need to, if we've got those groups, we need to drill down to get at that sort of nominal code level. Whereas if we had a detailed chart of accounts, we wouldn't have to do that. It's displaying that on the main screen. So have a bit think about your chart of accounts, your reports. Are you always needing extra detail, or do you just need a quick tweak to the chart of accounts layout itself, and it would provide the level of detail that people require? Right, now I want to pick up on, I'll quickly show you the balance sheet as well. Obviously it works in exactly the same way. So again, as you flick through the ranges, you've got your 80 ranges here in the below. The bit that's a little bit different is what we term our floating categories. Now, floating categories exist within the current assets and the current liabilities section. So if we click into that, you'll see rather than just one big box here, it's broken into two. Now, this middle box, it works in exactly the same way. So we've got our description, we've got a low and a high value. So we were to run a balance sheet, it would look at the nominal codes that exist within this range, add them together, and it would include it in the current asset section. Similar for deposits and cash, and credit card debtors. So again, you can tweak the ranges in there if you want to. The difficult part, and this is the bit that some people struggle to really get their heads around, is the floating nominal accounts. Now, by default, your floating nominal accounts will be set up as your bank account and your VAT liability. And you'll have this section here in both your current assets section and in your current liabilities section. Now, the two sections should always look the same. They should ideally have the same descriptions and the same ranges in there. And the way that these work is when you run your likes of your balance sheet, it'll look at the description and it'll say, right, you've got the range 1200 to 1209, and it will add up all the relevant balances for the relevant period that you've specified, add them together, the nominal codes are within this range. And if it's a positive balance, so a debit balance overall, it'll show that in your current assets section on your balance sheet. If it calculates it as a negative, so let's say it calculates for bank account, it adds up the nominal balances for this one, and it calculates that as being overdrawn, for instance, so a negative balance, a credit balance, it would show that as a current liability. So it means by having this sort of range and it being the same in both the current assets and the current liabilities, it means when it calculates that, the balance can float between the two, depending whether it's essentially a class as a current asset or a current liability. Similar for your VAT liability. Now, you might always think, well, we always owe money, so it's never going to float into the current assets section. But you never know. It's in there just generically, it's in here by default, just because some businesses you will be in a position to recover an amount. So it means that the balance, depending on what it is, it can float between the two sections. Now, if you make a change to the floating nominal codes, so I just put my initials in again, and I'll get this prompt. Do you wish to copy this range to the current liabilities? Now, if you're prompted with this, you should always choose yes. So you're saying, right, well, I'm making a change. So I'm doing, let's say 1280 to 1290 as an example. So I now I've got a new floating range. And if I just click across to the current liabilities, you can see it's been added in automatically. So you always want this section in both the current assets and the current liabilities to be the same. Otherwise, potentially your balance sheet might not balance when you generate that. Now, if you can get your head around that bit, that's the hardest bit of the chart of accounts. If you look at that and you think, well, actually, when I calculate my bank balance, or when the software calculates it, if it is in negative, I would rather have that shown in the current assets, but in brackets to show it as a negative. If that's the case, strip it out of the floating section and put it into the upper section here, the middle section. It means that if it calculates your bank account balance, so this range here, if it calculates that and it's a positive balance, it would list the description bank account and it would show the balance. If it does it and it's overdrawn, it's going to show that bank account in your current asset section, but it would show the value in brackets indicating it's a negative. Now I'm just going to remove that extra range that I've popped in there. And as soon as I tab out, do you wish to copy this range? So do I want to make the same change? Yes to that prompt. Now if I just toggle between the two, just to make sure they're both the same, which they are, that's it done. So that's the most complicated part of the chart of accounts. I hope that makes sense. If not, have a little play around with it after the session. So get in and copy a chart of accounts or add a new one. Have a little play with that. Now I'm going to go back to one of the questions we received quite early on. So it was a question from Naomi. Naomi was asking at the time, is there a way to check you haven't accidentally left out any active nominal codes from your chart of accounts? So you've got this check option at the top. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to amend one of my ranges. So we'll just do 4,000 to 4,000, which as it stands, it means that likes of 4001 isn't included in any of these ranges. So if I was to produce a P&L using this chart of accounts, it means that it's not picking up that nominal code. So if you make any changes, always use the check option at the top. So I'll save the changes I've made, and then I'm going to get this incomplete chart of accounts. So we just OK that. What I'll then be prompted is a chart of accounts errors window. And if I just preview that, it basically generates a report for me. So if I just zoom in so you can see that, and it's telling me these nominal codes are not represented in the chart. Now, even if it's a nominal code that exists, but maybe you just don't use it, I would always say you want to make sure you've got no errors in your chart of accounts. So it may just be a case you tweak a range or extend it just to incorporate a certain nominal code in that range, or even add that in itself. So you could pop a range onto the end of a section and just say, right, this, whatever the description is, and give it that number. So 4009 to 4009, for instance. And because it's not used, if I've got no balance against it, then it's going to make no difference to my report itself. So you want to make sure, ideally, you've got no missing nominal codes. There are some other errors potentially it will look for if I just extend the range this time. So we'll do to let's say 4500. Now, what that would mean, product sales 4,000 to 4,500, it would mean it's also going to incorporate this nominal range, this one, and that one. So it means I'm going to be double counting figures. So the likes of 4,100, that nominal code, it would be included in this value overall, but it will also be included in this value. So you're double counting your values. So again, make any changes, click check. So it does tell me incomplete chart of accounts. Just OK the message. Preview the report. Got to look a lot more detailed this time. And it's telling me one of the following ranges is enclosed within the other range. Now, if it's not fully enclosed within the range, you get a slightly different message saying it just overlaps. But in this case, it is fully enclosed within this range. So it's telling me in the sales section, the heading product sales this is the range, but also in the sales section under this heading, this is the range. So in this case, I can see it's fully enclosed within that one. So again, you want to correct those. So I've got a few of those. So I'll just change that back. Click check. You want to save the changes? Yes. Tells me it's updated successfully. Tells me now no errors found in that chart of accounts, and that's it done. Now, some of you may have noticed the word partial creeping up there. Partial would indicate you've got errors in your chart of accounts. Now, I'm just going to change it again. So we'll do 4,000 to 4,000, meaning that we've got some missing nominal codes. If I save the changes, I get this warning, incomplete chart of accounts. It means there are errors in my chart of accounts. That's what that means. So I just OK that. Saves the changes, but it puts the word partial on the end, on the description. If I edit that, I can see the description. I'll try and delete the word partial off that. That's fine. But as soon as I click save, I'm back to where I was, incomplete chart of accounts. We OK that. OK that message, and it puts the word partial back on. So if you see any chart of accounts layouts with the word partial, edit them and check it. The only way you're going to permanently get rid of that word partial on the end of your description is to make sure you've got no errors. So I'm just going to change mine back one final time. We'll just click check just to make sure that is the case. Save the changes. We'll OK the message. No errors found. We'll just OK that. And when I save it, you see I'm back to my list and it no longer says the word partial. So that's how you can check. If you need any advice on the errors that potentially come up, again, you might have errors with regard to the floating ranges if they don't match. Or maybe you've got a range in one of the floating areas. So let's say it's in current assets, but it's not within current liabilities or vice versa. Or you might have a range where the low and the highs aren't the same. So again, you could get potential errors relating to that as well. Hope that makes sense. So in a nutshell, that's the chart of accounts. So it means you can have a little play with that. Now I'm going to come back to questions in just a few minutes. just want to quickly mention, obviously, loads of webinars and things coming up. If you've got any extra questions just at this stage, please get them shared. There's loads of webinars coming up as well. I'll just quickly go back to the slides for a moment before I join in with the questions. So loads of webinars. Remember, you will receive a link to today's recording on your follow-up email, which you get around about an hour's time. So have a look at the other sessions that we've got coming up. So hopefully you've attended Nominal Records. If you haven't, that's on there. You've now attended Chart of Accounts. The next session in this series is going to be looking at the management reports themselves. So check that out. That'll be on 11 o'clock next Tuesday morning. It's the first time we're running that. Then it'll be repeated the week after. So if you haven't yet signed up, please do. Hopefully it'll just embed that knowledge a bit more. But again, the link to the today's recording will be on the follow-up email, as will the link to our webinar registration page. Right, I'm going to start picking up some of those questions. Let me just quickly head back to my screen again. See what we've got. Helen, you mentioned earlier, is there a way to reorder the lines once entered in your chart of accounts? You can't copy and paste. So if let's say this product sales, I don't want to be there. I want further down the line. I can highlight that, but I can't copy the full line. So it's easier just to essentially you just need to click onto a blank line, type it in, type your range in, and then the original line, F8 to remove it. Let's see what else we've got. Victoria, you mentioned there, is there a way to restore defaults from Sage for the chart of accounts? Not really. If you've amended the default, then the default chart of accounts, that first one on the list, because you only get one by default. So if you've already amended that one, then you can't really restore anything that's going to override that. But there is a list within our help center. It would give you the default ranges, the descriptions, if you do need that. You can always refer to the one in the demonstration data as well, if required. If you need any assistance correcting your chart of accounts, so do get in touch with our support team. Kate, you also mentioned, can you put in a range of null codes where some of the codes in that range are inactive? Yes, that'll be absolutely fine. Obviously, you say there, will it only pick up the active nominal codes in the range? So yeah, if you've got a nominal code which is inactive, meaning that it's got a zero balance, when you run your report, because it's got a zero balance, it's not going to impact your report whether it's included or not. So that's absolutely fine. That's not going to cause you any problems, that one. Just going back to Emma's question as well, just more of a comment on what I've done, just confirming there, once you've checked and addressed the errors, it will change to the partial part of the chart account. So yes, it will remove that word partial from the description. It removes it automatically for you. I hope that makes sense. Right, okay, I think the questions are just about dried up at that point. So Abby and Laura very busy this afternoon. So just going to go back to my final slide. If you do think of anything else, once you've left the webinar, obviously check the information on a help center, and obviously our support team is available otherwise. But many thanks for coming along. I hope you've enjoyed that, giving you a bit of an insight into the chart of accounts and building on your knowledge, what you've learned about nominal records, and hopefully it'll help you understand the management report session that little bit better. When we go into that, we'll be having a little bit of a recap on chart of accounts. It'll give you a much better understanding. And when we get onto that one, that's when you might start thinking, well, actually, to make sure that my profit and loss has the right level of information, I need to start looking and go back to edit the chart of accounts itself. Right, so we're going to end the webinar just at that point. If you do think of anything, as I say, Help Centre, get in touch with our support team. There'll be a little survey pop up as you leave today's session. If you can take a minute to complete that, it'd be greatly appreciated. Your follow-up email, which includes a link to today's session. It'll include a link to our registration page and also to our recordings page. So do get yourself signed up. They're all free to attend. We'll shortly be adding the March sessions. In March, we're going to be looking at we're going to introduce another badge series where we're going to be looking at invoicing. That they should be available to book onto by the end of this week. So watch out for those as well. Right, we'll end the webinar at that point. Many thanks for coming along. Do complete that survey and hopefully we'll see you on some other sessions very, very soon. Many thanks.